Welcome back to the Two Months Hockey Podcast presented by Kentwood Ford. I'm your host, Joshua Marshall, and we have a very special guest joining us tonight to preview the Western Conference playoffs and the Dallas Stars versus the Edmonton Oilers. We have Jack Michaels from the Edmonton Oilers Radio Network. Jack, how's it going?
I'm good. I'm ready for another classic series. Edmonton has played some beauties lately. Even the Vegas series, while 5 games, was far closer than that with two OT games, a game with two goals in the last 3 minutes, and another game decided at the horn. So it was, a far tighter series than it would first appear. And I don't expect Dallas to be a series that goes fewer than 6 games. So these two teams are proud, battle tested, veteran. They've been around it for the last half decade, and neither has anything to show for it except for a Stanley Cup final loss. So you'll see a highly motivated, desperate, again, veteran teams that knows the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat, to steal a line from Wide World of Sports.
Yeah, for sure. So we have our co-host Phil Stockley with us too. So you're on with a Flames fan and a Leafs
That's okay.
and a Leafs
You
fan.
know what? The Flames, since I've been in Edmonton, I would have to say most of the animosity is reserved for Vancouver and Toronto.
Yeah.
I honestly feel the Flames rivalry heated up a little bit in 2022 when they were both good. Calgary won the division, but we all knew Edmonton would win that series, and they did. Uh, but outside of that, the Kachuk Cassie, and that was pretty brief. It's a rivalry that I think has kind of grown into respect. And again, unfortunately, the two teams are rarely good at the same time.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for sure. Phil, I'll get your comments on that before we get into everything. This is obviously our first time jumping on the pod, and in terms of what happened to Mark Scheifele and his dad, Brad. So, as our podcast, and Jack can say a few words if he wants, but we offer our condolences to the Scheifele family, and the performance that Mark had in that game was remarkable. And sometimes life gets you as quick as it does, and unfortunate it happened to the Scheifele family. But our thoughts and prayers are with him. And that handshake line was pretty special, Jack, wasn't it?
Well, it's always special. I mean, it's a tradition unlike any other in professional sports, that end of the series handshake line. And obviously, with what happened to Brad, it took on greater significance because of the mutual respect that everyone has for Mark Scheifele, and including Jamie Benn, who, of course, had a memorable dust up with Scheifele the game before. I think, the thing about fathers and sons is there's a bond there. I'm an only child. I'm extremely tight with my dad. I just got off the phone with him, as a matter of fact, and it's tough. I remember when my dad was laid up in the hospital, and I didn't like how things were going. He didn't seem to be getting any better, and it was relatively minor, certainly compared to this. And I flew across the country at the time. I was living in Alaska, and I flew across the country, and I had him out of that hospital in 24 hours. And I know it made a difference. I know it. I know it boosted him, enough to, hey, I'm going to get myself together at least in front of my son. And so I have a lot of respect for father son relationships, mother daughter. I mean, there's something special there, and obviously, it's an old school approach, right? I mean, I totally believe him, and I didn't know Brad Scheifele, but I could envision the type. I know my dad wouldn't want me to miss a broadcast if he passed away on the night of a game. He really wouldn't. He'd tell you to, go do the job and then say some nice words about me.
Yeah,
That's what he would say.
yeah,
And my hunch is Mark's dad is much the same. I know Mark and Ryan Nugent Hopkins, his draft classmates, are fairly good friends, and I don't care who you are. I think there's a 600 player fraternity, 650, I guess now with the expansion teams. Um, it's something that everyone can identify with. I mean, we've all, unfortunately, especially when you hit your 30s and 40s, you start losing a family member or two. I know I lost an aunt about 8 years ago that was kind of like a second mother, second grandmother to me. And to be able to go out and compete at the highest level. It's testament to his character. It's testament to the boy that Brad raised, and I'm sure that Brad would be awfully proud of his son, not for playing that game, for just being the man that he is. I've gotten to know Mark Scheifele a little bit. I don't claim to be friends with him or anything like that. I don't get the players' numbers, but whenever I've talked with him, you get a sense for guys, and he's a guy who's a smart guy, who's an old soul, and like you said, you can only hope that time heals that a little bit, and that in time he'll appreciate all those great memories with his dad, because I'm sure his dad was really proud of him.
Yeah, Phil.
Yeah, same. Just condolences to the family. I got two young boys who play minor hockey, just like Mark did at one point, and his dad was probably there for every game, just like I try to be there for every game for my kid. And I can't imagine how tough it is. Him knowing, dad's not at the games anymore, but yeah, it's a tough day that unfortunately we all have to go through at some point. And I just it was very emotional the other night watching the game, and yeah, just the fact that he got that goal was pretty special for sure for his dad, and yeah, all the best to their family for sure.
Yeah. One of the best stories, real quick on that, was I guess I was listening to today. I think Darren Dreger was telling it. They told the story at the draft where the Winnipeg Jets had a criteria, pretty much, or just I don't even know if that's the right word, but just a checklist of everyone that they would be that would represent the organization in a great way. And obviously, Mike Shifley was that person. That's a testament to his family members, his brother, his parents, that the way they raised them. So yeah, our condolences to them. Tough transition, but we'll move over just real quick. Jack, I just want to get your thoughts on what we saw from the Toronto Maple Leafs these playoffs before we get into this Oilers series. But you've seen the Leafs a lot throughout your years here in Edmonton, and just in terms of even that bubble kind of season. But why do you think they can't get over that hump? And what did you see that was the difference maker in that series?
Well, I thought Florida's forecheck got to Toronto's defense. I saw fewer and fewer outlet passes completed on time as that series wore on. I saw a bit of an advantage in the back half of that series in goal. I mean, let's not forget they didn't have Stolers. I also would say that, and Edmonton has learned this. I think not many people would have predicted that the Oilers had a better team this year. And they might lose to Dallas in the conference final. Who knows? But I think Edmonton's more dangerous because they roll four lines. They've got agitators on every line. They've got forwards who get in on the forecheck, play in straight lines, rattle the opposition goaltender. They've got enough defense who move the puck, and they've got a two goaltender rotation that you can rely on. And I know that sounds absurd, but I've always found it strange that a Western Conference schedule, you play the starter 52 times and the backup 30 in the regular season, and then in the playoffs it's 26-0. I've never understood that.
Mm-hmm.
But getting back to Toronto doesn't have those attributes. I think they compete hard, but they don't have enough bangers in their lineup. It's one of the reasons I give Edmonton a slight edge over Dallas is, outside of Jamie Benn and Mason Marchment, all of a sudden Edmonton looks like the heavier team, blessed with a great deal more sandpaper. Toronto's got some guys. I mean, they've got Max Domi, Holmberg, but they have a lot of the same. And I think Austin Matthews was a little beat up in that series. But I thought the biggest thing is their defense was worn out by Florida's forecheck by the end, and I thought transition game just wasn't there for Toronto in two of the final three. I think they're probably at this stage, and I'm not a guy who's going to say, oh, the season was for naught. I mean, they got to Game 7 of the second round and they lost to the defending Stanley Cup champions. This season was not a failure for Toronto. That said, I don't think there's any reason to bring back the whole crew. Even if, I don't know what kind of haircut John Tavares is looking at, but I wouldn't, I'm not labeling Tavares and Marner as the problem, but I think it's time to shake up the mix a little bit. And if you don't get it right next year, then you try again the following year. That's what Edmonton's done. As you guys know, the Oilers have not. I mean, two of their biggest free agent acquisitions aren't even in the lineup right now, and Victor Arvidsson and Jeff Skinner. So you go find Vasily Podkolzin, you go find John Klingberg, you go find Jake Wallman, you go acquire Trent Frederick. You find ways to overcome little holes in your lineup, and I don't know whether Toronto has been as active as they've needed to be when it comes to shaking things up a little bit. You can miss. I mean, just look at Edmonton. They downgraded pretty quickly from Jordan Eberle to Ryan Strome to Ryan Spooner. I mean, that got away from them in a hurry. You don't always make the right moves when you shake up the core. I mean, it looked like they won the Adam Larson trade, and then next year Taylor Hall was MVP. But, you could make the argument that was kind of a saw-off. I mean, Adam Larson has been invaluable for Seattle. You can't, if you're not having success to the level that you want to reach, there's nothing wrong with shaking things up, because at least you can say, hey, we tried. We didn't keep going back to the same mix, because I think Toronto's plateaued a little bit, and they've got to find a next level. And you don't have to look any further than the 2018-2019 Tampa Bay Lightning. That should be everyone's blueprint for don't be afraid to shake things up, no matter if the team wins 62 games or not. Toronto had a great season. They should be proud of it. But that doesn't mean that there's not some significant change needed there.
Yeah, very well said. And we'll dive into that later in the podcast. But obviously, we got Jack on to break down our Edmonton Oilers series here, sponsored by our friends at Shadified Salon and Barbershop. I know they still really want Jack Michaels and his son to go in to get a haircut and get all.
Yeah, we got to do that.
Yeah, so I know Shaddy's dying for that. He keeps asking.
All right, we'll make that happen. Maybe when I'm back from Dallas. My son needs a haircut.
Okay, well, he said bring him in.
I need one. I need one too. So we'll go, Jack.
Well, you're wearing a hat. We don't even know whether you need a haircut.
Well, that's why I'm wearing a hat, because it's a mess. It's a mess under there.
Gotcha.
All right, Phil, you got some questions for Jack?
Yeah, Jack. We were just you were just kind of mentioning it about the Oilers retooling and finding these different players. How important has it been so far in these playoffs?
Absolutely,
you don't really,
absolutely vital. I mean, I can't tell you how important it is. Kane and Frederick have changed the whole situation. I mean,
agreed.
The one thing is, guys, is Edmonton did not have the team it has now the entire season. Not one time did they play together. Kane didn't play the entire season. Frederick played a minuscule amount of one game. John Klingberg played 11 largely ineffective games because he still wasn't completely right from the double hip surgery. The best thing that happened to him is he blocked a shot off his foot, came back a different player. He's got confidence in the engine right now, and he's playing better than I could have anticipated. It's made all the difference. Kane and Frederick in particular, in tandem with Perry and Podkolzin, and to a lesser extent Matthias Janmark. I mean, you've got five guys that other teams despise. I mean, they just hate playing against them. No one likes those guys. And that's a good thing. In the playoffs, you want that. No one likes those guys. Darnell Nurse doesn't have to fight anymore. There's not a lot of fighting in the playoffs, but my point is it's other teams now that are spending lots of energy riding Corey Perry out of the crease, hog-tying Trent Frederick and putting him in a headlock. That takes energy to get those guys out of your blue paint, to get them off your goaltender. It's like a boxer that just won't relent on the body attack. It just, the head's going to fall. And that's what Edmonton does. They keep coming at you at waves. They weren't overly physical in the regular season, but they've been a hitting club in the postseason. I think Zach Hyman leads the league in hits. Yep. And Podkolzin, hits per minute way up there. And Evander Kane is a physical specimen. I mean, I mean that with true respect in terms he's just an athlete. He steps in and somehow can get there. He hasn't played in a year, but he told me, I feel better. I wasn't myself last year. He didn't play after game 2 of the Stanley Cup final, but a healthy Evander Kane is a physical power forward who can score and again just agitate and get under your skin, and he just is in your face, and he's got a wicked shot. And Trent Frederick's the same way. He's not as skilled as Evander Kane, but we're all talking about, functional toughness. And Edmonton all of a sudden is a heavier version of itself, and I think a more dangerous version of itself. And we saw it a little bit. We saw it in glimpses last year. I thought they wore Dallas down. Let's not forget, Dallas was up 2-1 and 2-0 in game 4 of that series. And Edmonton wore Dallas down. And that's, I think, the biggest advantage the Oilers have going into that series is their physicality.
And it seems almost like that's the game plan this year. Is let's just wear these teams out and let's just hit them every chance we get. And I feel like that's good hockey.
Well, I mean, you look at the Oilers, 3 of their 8 wins have come in overtime, and they've rolled 4 lines. I mean, absolutely fearlessly, just like Vegas used to. I mean, just like Vegas used to with, Ryan Reeves and Nosek and Will Carrier. I mean, they are unafraid to play the 4th line. And, Vasily Podkolzin, Matthias Janmark, Corey Perry, that's a line with not only veteran moxie, but youthful energy and P&V, if you know what I mean. And Corey Perry is, again, beloved by his teammates, despised by everyone else. And he's highly effective. I mean, Corey Perry had more goals per 60 minutes played than, for as little as he played. I'm not even sure he played 12 minutes a night this year. He had 19 goals. I mean, him and Adam Gaudette were the class of the league in that category. So, again, and a third line, Connor Brown's playing great. Adam Henrique has found another gear. And Trent Frederick is, again, functional toughness. Guy who can play, guy who can skate, guy who can hit, and a guy who had a pretty memorable fight with Nick Hague. It's a tough team. I would not have thought that Edmonton's toughness and physicality and depth would ever be deciding, some of these small margins, but they are. They're the difference right now, because as good as McDavid and Draisaitl have been, they haven't exploded in this postseason yet. That's the scary thing.
Yeah,
for the
look
opposition.
out when they do.
Yeah, that's the thing. McDavid hasn't had he hasn't had. I think he's had maybe 1 or 2 4-point games all year. Yeah. And he's had the quietest 100-point season in the history of the league. And Leon Draisaitl's having a nice postseason, but they haven't been out of this world. And that's what would be scary for Dallas is Mikko Rantanen better keep it up, because right now the Stars aren't getting anything from Matt Duchene, very little from Jason Robertson. They had a hat trick in the one game from Mikhail Granlund. Outside of that, he's got 1 goal. They're not getting Jamie Benn is, as he said to, Gretz the other night, I'm a checking guy. They're old war horses. They're basically Wyatt Johnston, Mikko Rantanen, Haskin, and Ottinger. Yeah. That's what's going to carry Dallas in this series. They better have good series, because if they don't, they're going to need to get production from some of their other veterans. Tyler Seguin's on that list too, in a hurry. Yeah. Because if they don't, I think Edmonton has the greater depth. Believe it or not, I think the Oilers might have greater depth on defense.
Yeah. Obviously Petrovic's a friend of ours, and obviously him.
He's a great guy. He's the designated Stanley Cup playoff guy. Last 2 years, yeah. He's played more playoff games than he has in the NHL. He's played 2 full seasons in the American League, and then at the end of the year, Peter DeBoer's like, hey, why is this guy in the minors? And he elevates him up over top of Brendan Smith and Matt Dumba. He's playing ahead of Matt Dumba. So again, I think the Stars are a little thinner than it first appears on the back end. And quite frankly, Vegas's back end, which I thought would be an advantage in that series, I thought at times they looked slow and increasingly wary of being hit as that series moved along.
Yeah. We've gone a lot here, and we haven't talked about Skinner or Pickard, and obviously what Dustin Schwartz has been able to do with both goaltenders. And obviously you touched on it during the broadcast throughout the playoffs that, Skinner, I think had a 922 save percentage against Ottinger last year, and Ottinger had a 902. The advantage there, and hey, Stuart Skinner wins a Stanley Cup. He's the starting goaltender for Team Canada at the Four Nations, in my opinion, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And he's still a great goaltender, and we believe in him, and as you guys would believe in him too with the Oilers there. But what's your thoughts on what he's been able to do to kind of dial it in and get back-to-back shutouts here and a pivotal game 3 round?
Well, it's a credit to his professionalism. He really didn't play much the last month and a half of the year. He had a concussion, and then Pickard was on a roll, and obviously, Skinner came back and got a couple of meaningless wins down the stretch, and they started him in the postseason. And the team, here's the thing. The team had to wait around for LA. That series, I think they finished up with San Jose on Wednesday, and they didn't play until Monday or whatever it was. And this team has not done well with layoffs all year. They weren't ready to go start of the season, went 0-3, and lost 6-0 opening night. Christmas time, they're rolling. They come out, and they lose to the Kings in overtime and then lose a dreadful game to Anaheim, one of their worst games all year. Four Nations comes, they come out of the Four Nations break, they lose 4 in a row. I don't think, someone asked me, they're an older team, they're the oldest team in the league. Layoff will be good for them. I don't think it's going to be good for them. I think if Edmonton gets off to a good start in this series, Dallas has no chance because once Edmonton gets going, they're a wagon. The Oilers, do put themselves at risk if they don't get going in this series. Dallas is better than LA. And Dallas, again, blew that 2-1 series lead plus 2-0 in game 4. They remember that. They're a proud team. They are not going to let Edmonton off the hook again, I don't believe. As much as I believe in the Oilers' resilience, Edmonton will be well served to at least get a split in Dallas. It's going to be tough, even though, I know a series doesn't begin until the road team wins. It's going to be tough if you come back down 2-0 to Dallas because they can smell it too. They're desperate. They're hungry. I don't know whether Skinner's going to, win the next 8 games. At some point, the Oilers are, they've got to win 8 of 14 to win the Stanley Cup. Would I bet my mortgage on Skinner winning all 8 of those games? I would not. I think Pickard may make an appearance. And you know what? Skinner may finish. If I had to put money on, I would say Skinner, Pickard, Skinner at some point in the next 4 weeks. I honestly believe that. I think the Oilers have a 2 goaltender rotation. I do think it's a rotation. And I also think it's a subtle advantage. I don't know whether Dallas, if they need to, not that Ottinger is going to get benched at any point, but if they need to for injury purposes, remember, Pickard got hurt. He wasn't replaced due to ineffectiveness. He'd won 6 in a row. And Skinner lost his first game. Look, Stuart Skinner's coming off back-to-back shutouts. He's 2-1, and he's 2-3 in the playoffs. That's the body of work, right? I don't know whether Dallas has as much confidence going to Casey DeSmith, Florida to Spencer Knight, or, Kochetkov.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's been a while since I've seen Carolina.
Right.
But I'm sorry. I think Edmonton as a tandem has a subtle advantage. You would think on paper, Jake Ottinger has the advantage in this series. But as you rightfully pointed out, Stuart Skinner outplayed him. And I will say this, Dallas cannot win this series if Ottinger doesn't outplay Skinner. They can't win.
Yeah, I totally agree. Phil, do you have any more? We have to get Jack out of here soon, but do you have anything else? I just want to ask him one last question, but do you have one last one for him?
I actually do. So my brothers are huge Oiler fans. They love Jack Michaels. They're disappointed Jack's not calling the games on Sportsnet coming up here. As is a lot of people. I know. We'll get on the radio and listen.
You know what? I should have brokered with Josh before I agreed. I should have brokered for him to do step-by-step instructions on how to stream and sync. You gotta pause the TV allow the streaming to catch up, and then boom. I'm going to give a little and the puck is dropped. I'll give a
There you
little
go.
clue.
And
Yeah.
everybody, you heard that here on the Too Much podcast, how to do it.
Go.
Right from the man himself. So my brother Tim is a huge fan. He just wanted me to ask you. He said, please ask Jack your favorite Oilers call of all time.
Well, I mean, this is.
There's a lot of them, though.
There's a lot of them. This is going to be a little upsetting. I was invited to be a guest on this show, but I mean, you are aware that Connor McDavid ended the Battle of Alberta, right? I mean, that's
very aware.
Yeah, that would be. I think that is right there with the final minute of the Dallas series last year when Dallas was kind of pouring it on. They outshot Edmonton 34-10. The crowd was absolutely insane with the final minute and Dallas pressuring. I think Jason Robertson had one last look with about 8 seconds to go. That extended call, and it's about a minute long, is probably a slight favorite over McDavid ending Calgary's dreams in the second round of 22.
Yeah, it's
and heartbreaking for me, but also respect for Connor McDavid as a Flames fan.
Yeah. Well, how about Draisaitl in that series? 17 points on one
Unreal.
leg. One leg. Yeah.
And so that's it for me, Jack. Keep doing what you're doing. You're amazing. We'll chat more at Shatified.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
I'll let Bosco close us out.
For me, don't
that
you?
was pretty much the same thing. Like I guess in a way
we didn't cover that the first time I was on this show.
Well, not that question, but my question is what Phil asked in terms of, did it feel really good to get that opportunity to call the first 2 rounds? And I would assuming if the lease went on, you would have stuck with the Oilers, but I don't know. I don't want to put words.
Yeah, I think that is true. But on the other hand, I was just grateful for the 2 rounds I got. I mean, there's a pecking order in all of our lives, and I understand that. And again, I don't view going to radio as a demotion or a lesser opportunity. My roots are in radio, and I enjoy it as much as anything. I like the big fella stuff, and Louis. I mean, we're all a gang. Cam Moon does a phenomenal job. If anything, I feel bad for Cam. He got to do the 11 games this year, his first 11 playoff games, and a quarter century in Red Deer, and this being his 5th year in Edmonton. I thought he did a phenomenal job all season long. So, again, I'm not going to cry in my suit because, of course, I'd love Cam Moon to be part of the broadcast as well. There's only so many chairs, and we all kind of shuffle the deck based on what Sportsnet goes with. And like I said, Chris Cuthbert is a friend of mine and an icon in our profession, as class a guy as I know in the business. I mean, there's not many people I know that don't have a kind word to say about Cece. So, and Simmer's the same way. I played a round of golf with Simmer last summer. They do a great job. So, Sportsnet is going to deliver a quality product. Our boy Gene Principe will be part of the show, which I'm elated for. I mean, Gene's been an original. He's an OG at Sportsnet. So I'm thrilled he's getting the opportunity to work with Simmer and CC. It's going to be a tremendous broadcast. But of course, selfishly, I want you to listen to me.
No, 100%. And I know we had our chat earlier, but it's just like it is cool because obviously CC's been on with us before, and as you know, he you got to meet the Freeborn family, and he did something nice for them as well too. And
he's
it's not shocking.
Chris Cuthbert is an icon, and he's a Hall of Famer. And just again, the thing with CC, and it's true of the best guys in our business. Kenny Albert's on that list. The great Nick Nixon, who just retired in LA. Before that, Bob Miller. Before that, Chuck Caton. I mean, all the top guys in our industry are really good people. And Chris Cuthbert is right there on that list. Chris and I have talked a lot over the years. He's always been an advocate of mine. It's a competitive profession, but he's an easy guy to root for. So, am I sad that Chris Cuthbert gets the nod over me to do the Western Conference Final? It'd be ridiculous for me to say that. You're talking about a Hall of Fame broadcaster, but more importantly, a Hall of Fame person. I consider CC a friend.
Yeah, 100%. He's a great person, and as you are as well too. And it's kind of cool because you get to bring the fans in. Jack, is you make them feel a part of the game, even if they're at home watching it from their couch. There's just a way that you can only do that, and certain people just have that gift. And obviously, yeah, like Stoss says, you have the one of the best voice, if not the best voice in the industry, and he does
I
play
just
that a lot. So sorry.
I just want to say one more thing to you, Jack,
Yeah.
really quick. You know, as a Flames fan growing up, like Peter Marr, like that
Oh,
voice
great
is
guy.
so
Peter Marr
comforting.
is awesome.
Yeah.
It's comforting to me, right? Oiler fans, Rod Phillips, that voice is so comforting. And just for you, kids like my kids' age, 12, 9 years old, listen to Oiler games on the way home or wherever they're going. You're going to be in that category too, Jack. So
Phil does a
just
good
just know that.
impersonation of you, by the way. So
Phil, let's hear it.
let's give it.
All right. What do you want me to do? What?
Give me whatever you got. Give me your best
man,
stuff.
whatever you got. I know I put you on the spot, but here you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I thought I did it a couple podcasts ago. Okay, let's think of something Jack would say. The Edmonton.
That mic must have a limiter on it. It
Yeah.
peaked out. I didn't get any of that.
Yeah, I didn't get
Yeah.
He started out a little bit like Marvin Martian, and then it just totally just faded
It must have something. So yeah,
Hey,
I can't
Phil,
I can't do it.
You need to pipe up the next time this guy takes a run at me because one of his teams gets their ass whipped by the Oilers. You got to say, "Hey, Josh, remember all those nice things you said?
Yeah.
Take a breath before you tweet."
Yes, 100%.
Well,
delete
yeah,
10-second rule, right? So
we always get our asses whooped by the Oilers. So
yeah, well, I'll tell you what. It's I actually, I mean, I don't, but I mean, I know as an outsider, it sounds foreign to say I don't consider it a massive rivalry. I think there's more of a mutual respect and a hatred between Edmonton and Calgary, and that may not be a great thing. I would like it if there was a little bit more intensity because the series in 2022 was fabulous. It was a lot of fun.
all right, Jack. Well, all the best. Safe travels to Dallas and that, and we'll catch you when you get home from Dallas and get you all set up at Shadified there. And I know Shadi will be looking forward to it, and your son too. And then Phil can meet you there. But again, thanks for your time, and really appreciate the evening you gave with us here, and all the best to you going forward, and continued success as well too.
You bet. Cheers. Take care. Thanks for.
Well, thanks to Jack Michaels from the Edmonton Oilers Radio Network for joining us. So second time we've had Jack on, and really appreciate the half an hour he gave with us. And I think it was really good. Bob Stauffer was on Spit and Chicklets, and we got Jack Michaels. So maybe they're the better podcast, and maybe we just got the better guest. I don't know. Fans can dictate any of it, any and all of that. So, but yeah, just want a quick rip on a few things here. We're gonna hopefully be out of here in the next half an hour, but just a few things to touch on before we just dissect some of the Leaf stuff, and then the Canes versus Panther series, and then we'll close up with the preview of the Stars versus the Oilers. But yeah, we obviously we had some incidents or whatever. There's some online bullying and attacking, and that's all been rectified. And with our sponsors, they wanted to continue our theme and not change much or anything up, and so that's why we've. I know I said it's not that, Nick's a part of this episode too. He just joined us now, and he wasn't a part of the earlier interview, and Phil's still here. But my words were I didn't want to cover or talk about the Oilers until next year, until I kind of had my time after this. But understanding with our sponsors and some other people talking, and even a lot of Oilers fans engaging with us, wanted us to continue that. So I backtrack my words on top of that. So, and again, if we offended all fans by trying to paint them with the same brush, again, apologize. I did not mean to do that. Every fan base has their good ones, and every fan base has some bad apples. But for the most part, every fans of every team in the National Hockey League and all the other teams are really, really good people and really good fans. So unfortunately, sometimes the bad ones do ruin it. But the situation that I faced, that has been dealt with. That individual has been charged. He has been caught. So we'll move on from that. But again, we will do some cool things going forward. And one of the cool things is There's some Oilers fans that we engage and I engage with a lot through DMs, and so we're going to cycle through some Oilers fans through some Oilers post game stuff just to kind of give back to them in some good ways. So we got a few guys joining us on Wednesday post game, and then we'll continue that on for the rest of this series and see where everything goes. We'll try it out for this round and see kind of the feedback. Sponsors are like the idea, and they want to jump in on that as well too. So thanks to that. In terms of there, again, those were my words. I wasn't trying to put words or Phil's words or Nick's words or anyone else's in our pod. There's something I dealt with. They, as far as I know, they didn't deal with anything that I had to deal with. But and a lot of it was just directed towards the podcast account, not really my own personal account directly. But I do run all those accounts. Anyways, apologies accepted from the Oilers side, and I apologize to any other Oilers fans in terms of that. So very passionate and committed hockey fans, as you guys can tell, and as you guys know. And Nick, I know we didn't do an intro earlier, but thanks for joining us on the back end of this episode. How are you doing, buddy?
Oh, pretty good. We're heading into a obviously pretty exciting time. NHL conference finals, NBA conference finals start, and the Memorial Cup starts this week. So lots of good sports on the docket.
Yeah, obviously there's some really good stuff going on with the Memorial Cup too, and then yeah, I saw that there's been a little bit of a WWE thing with a couple basketball players from last year turning over to this year that Triple H is pretty happy about, saying we pretty much wrote a story. So I thought that was pretty cool. I don't know if you saw that on social media as well, but I think Tyrese Halliburton and who is it? Jalen Bronson is the other one, or no?
Yeah, yeah. They ran into each. I think it was a SmackDown earlier in the year where they kind of Tyrese Halliburton was in the ring and Jalen Brunson was watching, and they went face to face just by the barrier. It was kind of neat. So
yeah. So he was actually Tyrese Halliburton was interviewed on Monday Night Raw tonight. So, and I think he did something with the Pat McAfee show today and donated something for a month.
So actually, so what happened was, so after the Knicks won their series, there's a firefighter in New York who he walked down the street outside in a Tyrese Halliburton jersey, and so somebody was videoing it, and so he was getting like garbage and stuff thrown at him, and he's just marching down the street. He's a lifelong Pacers fan. He's even got a Pacers tattoo on his arm and everything. And so all of a sudden this crowd just like enveloped him and they couldn't see him anymore. So Tyrese Halliburton and Pat McAfee put in some work to find out who he was, and the Pacers invited him to come out and just meet all the team and watch a game, I think, there, and playoff game. So it was actually really neat. The guy was really, really excited. I actually saw it this morning. I was watching McAfee, and it was a nice thing for him. And he's like hardcore Pacers fan. So good for him.
Yeah, no, that was pretty cool. And they did talk about it. He goes that Tyrese is flipping the bill for it. And then he goes, Pat, you should. He goes, no. I just provide the platform to say it. You can pay for it yourself. So anyways, good karma always comes back in a way. And I do remember seeing that clip. I didn't know. So backstory to that is obviously a firefighter. But yeah, sorry, Phil, just do a quick debrief. You liked the interview with Jack. What did you think about it?
Yeah, it was really fun. It was really fun to talk to him and get his perspective on the Oilers. Obviously, he's a big Oilers fan, loves the Oilers. So, um, I don't know if our Oiler fans won't come on our Oiler fans that we have involved in this podcast won't come on a podcast for some reason. So, it's good to have someone else's perspective who really follows the team closely, and I thought he made some really good points about the Oilers. So. If you listen, everybody's already heard it, so you've heard his thoughts, and they're going to be a tough out.
100% they will be. So just to give you a little bit of quick tidbit there, Nick, he did say that he talked about earlier this year a few occasions where the Oilers after breaks didn't come out of those breaks in a good way, and there are obviously some concern that they could come out of this break not in a good way, but if they come out of it in a good way, the series could be over in quick work. They could do some quick damage to the Dallas Stars, but we'll tease that there, and we'll get Nick's thoughts on that. I know a lot of people appreciate Nick joining us, and there's some good fans appreciating his take and his insight and the stuff he has said. So we'll get his thoughts on that very soon, but we'll get the thoughts. Obviously, I'm a Leaf fan. They are out again. Nothing shocking. Definitely received a lot of phone calls and text messages, but nothing on the out of ordinary. It's the usual stuff that you get for cheering for the Toronto Maple Leafs. But the one thing
Let me guess. Let me guess. Golf memes and yeah, what golf course are they going to? And oh yeah, I know, buddy. It's tough.
yeah, the same old stuff. But one thing I don't condone. Drager reported this on his podcast, and I know Nick Kiprio said the same thing too. Someone posted Mitch Marner's home address on Twitter. So very concerning. And then also the healthy scratches that didn't play for the Leafs last night, not the Black Aces, but the healthy scratch. I think there was 3 or 4 of them when they were leaving the press box to go down to the locker room, because that's kind of how it's done. It's very rare that the players don't go upstairs. But yeah, he got those 3 guys got attacked pretty badly and verbally, which is very concerning. And I guess the best way to describe it, unfortunately, is Brian Hayes said it, the host of Overdrive on TSN. He said it last night. The mob has spoken, and it is upset. And I don't know where the Leafs go from here tomorrow as this podcast comes out. So it'll be today. They will have their media available, just the players and the head coach. So Tree Living, Shanahan, Keith Pelly will not speak tomorrow. That might be put off till like Thursday or Friday. Shanahan's deal is up at the end of this year on June 30th. Do they resign him? Does Keith Pelly say we don't need that middle management no more? Everything goes through me. Do they offer Marner a contract? Do they offer Tavares a contract? Brad Treliving knows it all too well in terms of letting a player like obviously Johnny Gaudreau walked, and rest in peace to Johnny. But Treliving knows too well about letting some star players leave. And out of 20 years of him being a general manager, he's only won 3 series. So he just got into this role. He's only 2 years in, and how much pressure's on him. So a lot to dissect. I agree. I think everyone's already said it well enough. The stats prove it. Marner can't perform at this time of the year. Does he deserve the online attacks? In some ways, probably not. But I think Ryan, and I'm not a huge fan of certain guys on Spit and Chicklets. Obviously, Paul Bissonnette's been on our podcast, but I will agree with what Ryan Whitney said. I'm not a huge Ryan Whitney fan, and him and I had our in and outs even when he played for the Oilers. Back in the day, personally. But I think he did say it the best, is that, some of these people that are fans are working 70-hour work weeks to provide for their families. And when they want to spend an extra couple bucks on a jersey or something like that, or go to a game, unfortunately, you're going to get a little upset when you see the same outcome. But the fact that this is a crazy stat, guys, at all this year, not once this year until last night, not the Sharks, not the Blackhawks, not the Ducks, not the Islanders. No team besides the Toronto Maple Leafs gave up 75 shot attempts. 75 shot attempts in 40 minutes of hockey. That has not happened all year and in all playoffs. And the Leafs created that stat, are the ones that have that stat next to their name. That's how bad it was. And it just shows that the Florida Panthers are a powerhouse. As you said it, Nick, I think even off recording, maybe the Tampa Bay Lightning, obviously we saw what they did. They went to back-to-back cups and then lost one. The Florida Panthers might be doing the opposite in terms of it. Still going to 3 cup finals, lose the first one, but win the next 2. And that's not sure is looking like it right now. They don't get any rest, but their series is going to kick off real soon. But it is bad in Toronto. And I don't know where they go from here. I think if Shanahan's still there and runs things, we'll see everyone come back. They'll offer these guys. Darren Dreger reported today the Leafs just offered an 8-year deal, $13.5 million to Mitchell Marner before the playoffs started. And that, as he knows today, that offer still stands. I don't know how that contract gets signed with what we just saw, but it is interesting. And I think one of the things too that Justin Bourne had said, I know I'm taking some tidbits from other people, but I think they're good points to make, is that all four of these guys, the Tavares, the Matthews, the Nylanders, the Marners, they all want it to be the guy. Not one person just said, okay, you're the guy and we're going to support you. In their whole tenure with Toronto, they always wanted to be the guy. So they are always off on the wrong page and never were on the right page. And maybe that's the issue that this organization has, because Austin Matthews, the captain, said there's too many passengers and they weren't in sync last night. And he's not lying. You can't punish them for being honest. We don't want players to be honest. And when they're be honest, we get mad. No, he is honest. And Elliot Freeman did say the Leafs aren't happy with that comment. Nick, where are you out on this whole Leaf stuff here?
I think for me, and you're obviously well more versed in the Maple Leafs than I am, I found it very interesting that in game 5 and game 7 in Toronto, the Leafs no showed. And then they played extremely well in game 6 on the road. Do you feel like maybe there's some added, like, there's just a whole other level of pressure when they're at home? Because, we talked about in the first, during the first round when the Oilers were down 2-0, and I came on here and I said, I think the Oilers it's going to be 2-2 going back to LA because the Oilers are going to feed off that home crowd. And then I think about this series and game 5, it's like, okay, they just lost 2. They just lost 2 in a row on the road. Now they're going to get that home ice energy from the crowd. And then they laid an absolute egg. And then nobody gave them a chance in game 6. I thought they played extremely well in game 6. And then last night, I actually ended up listening to the first period, and it was the Toronto broadcast. And I thought the Toronto announcer was gonna, I thought he was going to have a heart attack, because the way that it sounded was like the Leafs just could not get out of their zone. And I wonder, is there something that's going on there that maybe is stopping them from playing good hockey at home in those situations? Like, is there just an added pressure? Like what do you think it is?
Well, they won a division. Like, it's the same team, and I get it. There's different ways to look at it. They have won the division. They've never really done that before. So they did it. And, but the Florida Panthers are like, well, we're not going to break our backs to win a division. I think they at least kind of got it handed to them because, Florida was just like, we're going to not dress half our team and have $38 million out of our lineup for the last 12 games of the season. But obviously, yes, games 5 and 7 at home, outscored 12-2. Can't happen. Maybe happens once, doesn't happen in a game 7. Shot attempts were 27-0 in the first 11 minutes. The Leafs ended up weathering that storm and coming out of that period tied. And then the tide changed once Chris Rooney got the stick to his eye, and obviously he's doing good. He's going to make a full recovery and be available later these series. But that really changed the momentum of the game. And it's weird saying it because it was a referee, but once that happened, the Leafs just never, and it is the way it works for them, especially against Florida. Once Florida gets one goal, they just smother you. And, the crowd was still kind of engaged even at that point. Even in the first period, the crowd was still trying to encourage them, even knowing it was pretty lopsided for the first 11 minutes. But I just think at times, and I think what it is, it's they can't go anywhere and hide. Like, half these guys take the train to the rink, so they're right with fans. Anywhere you go in that city, you got someone coming at you, good or bad. So you can't escape that. You're going to walk your dog, you're going to get stopped. There's a lot of pressure. There's a lot of pressure there, and the fans don't leave you alone. And it's not like Calgary where I witnessed it firsthand several times this year. Players at the mall, it's just a nod, hello, goodbye. They're not stopping you. They're not bugging you. They're not asking for a picture. They're not asking for an autograph. Toronto, it's the complete opposite. So there's just that added pressure. And, there's a lot of blame because the players wear blame too. The fans wear blame because they shouldn't be throwing beers and jerseys on the ice. And then the media blows them up whenever they have a chance to do it. So it's and there's a lot of media there, as we know. So there's a lot of blame to go around, but I I I, I never thought of the Justin Bourne clip until that part he had said, and I think he's true. I think all four of those guys want to be the guy, but not one person ever stood up to be like, it's tough. And then Paul Bissonnette again said it the best. He's like, how do you expect to win a series when your captain is not pot committed to your organization? Like, he's never signed an 8-year deal. It was entry level, 4-year deal, or 5-year deal, and then a 4-year deal. Like, he's literally took the most amount of money as possible with the least amount of term as possible for the most amount of money. He's never signed an 8-year deal. Like, it's, and the Marner thing will never escape him because he raked the team over the coals and held them hostage and threatened them, and then took the most amount of money that he possibly could too. And then Tavares, you didn't need him. Like, at that point of the time, they didn't need Tavares. And Nylander's played good, but the last 4 games of that series, Nylander did not play good. So it's like, but again, you can't really fault Nylander because his stats back up in moments where he's really good. And he committed to you 8 years. And he committed the contract before. So he's always been committed to Toronto. So it's tough to say, like, and I don't know. Matthews never has in his career has ever talked about the injuries he's gone through unless it's had to be a surgery that is public knowledge in a way. But any other stuff, it's always like not saying it, not commenting. So we'll find out today if he says anything in terms of it. I don't expect him to. I don't expect us to know what he went through this year. He was obviously injured. I don't think we're going to hear what injury he had and the length of it, unless he needs like major surgery and he's out for a while. But I don't know. They do it to themselves. It's the most Leafy thing ever. They're unreal in game sixes when they got to go home. They always win those game sixes when their season's on the line. They're down in a series 3-2. They always come out. Their stats in that game is tremendously great. But on the other end, when it's in 6 game 7s, Matthews, like, it's not good. And look at Marner. I think Marner in games 4-7 has 6 assists, 0 goals. Sometimes you're just with the pressure, and I think a lot of the guys wear it. And I think we're seeing it now in today's sports that a lot of players do listen and read what people have to say. And obviously it's not a good thing. Hey, I do it as a podcast host, and I shouldn't do it because, like, I should take the Gord Miller routine and turn the mentions off. But I read everything, good, bad, or indifferent. And that's probably a bad thing because you shouldn't read any of that stuff. And I do. But anyways, that's kind of my rant on it. I don't know if it really answers your question, but I don't think they ever get over the hump with this core. And at the end of the day, their bottom 6 had 3 goals from one player in Domi, and the other guys had nothing. And Lorenz had that breakaway, and he just put the puck right in Bobrovsky's stomach. Like, it wasn't even there's no real threat to that even going in at all, unless Bobrovsky like left the net and would have went in. And so the unfortunate part is I've always been a true living fan. It's just the depth that he thought he had didn't perform, and that's probably where Matthews is saying they had too many passengers. And it's a lot of pressure for him to do it every night, and he can't do it on his own. And even when he so it is tough. It's a hard league to win in, and look at that Ovechkin stat: 20 years in the National Hockey League, Alex Ovechkin's played. Only once he's ever gotten past the first round, and he's got a Stanley Cup. I think anyone would take that trade off if you had that. You can only get past the round 2 once. When you do, you win the Stanley Cup. The other times you're not ever going to get it. And I know a lot of people are comparing Malkin to Matthews in terms of Matthews needs a Crosby, just like Malkin needs Crosby. Malkin can't be the leader and the driver on his team. So that's something that's going up today. I don't know. Phil, you can give your thoughts. You haven't really said much there. You've taken a lot of it, and I've rambled on too much, but
No, you said it. You said it pretty perfectly. Um, you're right. During the game, like yesterday, you think like how much energy was in that rink before the game started, and like you said, Kevin Ernie gets that stick to the eye, and it was like someone just popped a needle in the building.
yeah.
And 1 goal led to 2 goals, led to 3 goals pretty quick. And at that point, you know, I'm sure as a Leafs fan, you knew it was done,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you got that feeling it was done.
I knew it was done when they started the way they did. I didn't think because I didn't think they were going to get the first goal. But Nick, any thoughts on that?
No, I mean, like I said before, I was really surprised. Usually it's the visiting team that has to weather the storm in that situation. It's for me when I watch these games, whether it's hockey or basketball, usually it's the home team that comes out hot, and it just seemed odd to me. And that was kind of why I asked my question, like, because it just usually you feed off that energy, and we talk about it all the time for any playoff game, really. It's like, for the game one or whatever, the big games, it's like the road team just has to manage the first 10 minutes, not get scored on, let the game settle in, let the fans settle in, and then it'll balance out. And it was odd to me that it was like the exact opposite in both game 5 and game 7 for Toronto, where it was Florida just came out hot, and Toronto, I don't want to say that they didn't seem like they were ready to go, because I don't know if that's necessarily true, but they just didn't seem ready to feed off the fans' energy and be the more desperate team.
Yeah, yeah.
I think we kind of talked about it before we hit record here, Bosco, but you were just telling us about the Bieksa quote. I thought that was really good.
Yeah, Greg Rayburn, a friend of the pod and great ball hockey player in Edmonton, said it too. And just repeating the words that Kevin Bieksa said, why is Toronto entitled to win? Like, there's 31 other teams that have an opportunity to win, and when Toronto wins, it's the end of the world. And he's very right. As a Leaf fan, he's very right. Never thought of it that way either. And I don't disagree with what he had said there, because it unfortunately it is like the reason why the cap is going up the way it is because what Toronto does on the TV deal side of things. But like a couple players told me too on the other end of it, the reason why they didn't have to pay escrow for most of this year was because Edmonton went to the Stanley Cup final. Just imagine, like, one of my friends today, one of my best friends, he's got multiple season tickets with the Oilers. He goes, I was praying for a Toronto Edmonton Stanley Cup final because when I pay off my mortgage, like the amount of money you would make in an Edmonton Toronto Cup final and what those tickets would go for on the open market after the Oilers or Leafs put them out there is astronomical. It's not going to happen. It may never happen.
Well, yeah, like what are the odds the teams are good at the same time again, right?
Yeah, it's there's the free agent class isn't great. Let's not kid ourselves. So I don't know what Tree Living does. We will find out this week. They're definitely going to offer the contract to Marner. The difference now is that Marner and Tavares have the opportunity. Do they want to live with this or do they not? And
And we've also talked about the damage that may have been done at the trade deadline between Tree Living and Marner.
it was not good. And Friedman said it on his podcast today. Probably a mistake because you could have got Rantanen for Matthew Knies and a couple first round picks. You probably shouldn't have went to Marner and said, there's a 1-for-1, you for Rantanen right now. It's up to you. I wouldn't have done that. I think that was a big mistake, and I think we'll see the repercussions of it. I don't blame Marner for leaving. Will he go down as one of the greatest Toronto-born players to ever play for the Toronto Maple Leafs? That's debatable. He has done good, but he also, like, another stat online too, he's only had one 100-point season, and he's played with the best goal scorer on his line consistently. So is he that good? I don't know. Obviously, the moment has gotten too big for him. We saw that in Four Nations. It took him a while to get going. Then he just got put on McDavid's line, and then they scored. But yeah, I just wasn't. He got the overtime winner in the Four Nations as well too. But the unraveling happened, and we've never seen it. And him yelling on the bench, Berube yelling on the bench, the head shaking, all that stuff. The Leafs came unglued, and it's because that was the end of the era for this core. And I cannot believe that they bring this back. And I do think Toronto has to really consider about what they're going to do going forward here. And everything is on the table. I don't think there's certain things you cannot. I think everything, and I even think Austin Matthews is on the table. Oddly enough, I think you really have to consider what everything looks like here, because does he want to deal with this too? Does he just want to go to LA and live in the sunlight? I don't know. He obviously has a house in that area, and you have to really consider it, and it all depends. Brendan Shanahan is running that team consistently like he has the last several years. Those guys are all back and they're paid as much money as they want, whatever term they want, whatever amount of year, like all that, any full no move, all that stuff. So really all depends what happens with Brendan Shanahan. That's the dictation. That's where everything goes with this organization. The real tell, the biggest sign will be whether he speaks or doesn't speak. Because if he's speaking, that means they're re-signing him, and then he's re-signing those players. And it's just the same thing. You're just going to keep running it all back until they think it works, which it won't. And there's just another stat. Brody McIntyre, co-host of our podcast, just put it in, but this comes from Drew Livingston. No team in the National Hockey League has ever won a Stanley Cup with an AAV over $10 million. Depth wins. And that means over. I know some people might take that a look. Well, what are you talking about? Bobrovsky, Eichel. They were at 10 million. The stat is over $10 million. So we'll see if we'll have to see if Dallas or Edmonton does that, because those are the teams that have players over $10 million. But the Oilers only have the one, right? And that's just McDavid. Draisaitl's not at over 10 million, not this year. Next year he is. So yeah. And obviously Sagan, I think, is at $13 million. Anyways, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I know we went on pretty long there. Do you guys have anything else to add? We'll probably talk more about the Leafs as we get more news from the organization over the next week. But anything you guys want to add there?
No, not for me. No,
I'm good.
All right. We're going to get our breakdown of the Eastern Conference Final. I'm not going to really say too much. I know, Nick, you've been very invested into what the Canes are as an organization and as a team and what they've been able to do in the playoffs. How do you see this matchup shaping up for them? They've never won a game with Brendan Moore in the third round. They were obviously swept the last two times they've made this. They probably win some games, if not the series. Where are you at with the Canes, Nick?
I mean, it's funny for me because I watch Carolina, and I'm going to preface this by saying I'm not a Carolina fan at all. I do not like them. I've been thoroughly entertained watching their games, and for some reason they've got this tag that they're a boring team. When I watch them, they're so fast, they're hard on pucks, they're really, really aggressive, and they are shot volume kings. In the regular season this year, they finished with the second most shots per game. They're averaging the second most shots per game in the playoffs. And, I don't know how many analytics fans there are out there, but one of the first ones that they talked about was Corsi, and they're Corsi champs at this point. They're extremely hardworking. They're really hard on the puck, and I'm interested to see how they match up against Florida. Florida's obviously bigger. I think they're bigger than they are. They're a little bit heavier, but I think Carolina is going to give them fits. And I do believe that if Freddie Anderson can play like he did in the second round, he made some big saves in that round against Washington, I think Carolina is going to beat Florida.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a low-scoring series just because of the goaltending depth on both ends. Phil, what do you think?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because Carolina is kind of this team that you don't really think about too much. You got Florida, Stanley Cup champs, taking on. We just talked for a long time about Toronto, center of the hockey universe. Like, what a heavyweight tilt. But the Carolina Hurricanes just kind of easily in the background took care of the Washington Capitals. And it's funny because like me and Nick were kind of watching the Carolina Washington game last Thursday, and he just kept telling me, like, watch the shot volume, watch the shot volume. I'm like, okay. And yeah, sure enough, it was like every time they got a chance, they're coming in the zone, they're shooting the puck. So yeah, after that quick conversation with Nick, I'm like, you know what? I actually kind of like Carolina in this series too. But at the end of the day, like, don't count out the Florida Panthers either, right? Stanley Cup champs still, and they're Stanley Cup champs for a reason.
It's interesting to me. This kind of goes with all four teams left. Like, there's such good parity. Like, I don't know if the parity's ever been higher in the NHL. But then you look at this round, Edmonton's in their third Eastern Conference final in the last 4 years. Dallas is in their third straight. Florida's in their third straight. And Carolina's been in two of the last three Eastern Conference finals. Like, for all the parity that there is in the league, these four teams seem to be right near the end, at least in the last few years.
Yeah, they consistently find a way to get there and prove their worth to be there. So we'll see what definitely the Carolina Hurricanes can do in terms of getting that first kind of win. But yeah, it'll be an interesting situation on all of that going forward here. But we'll have to keep an eye on everything because it will be a fun series. All right, let's move over and finish up on the Edmonton Oilers versus the Dallas Stars. Obviously, Matt Duchene and Alexander Petrovic are friends of our podcast, Pete DeBoer as well. So, somewhat of maybe our allegiance goes there. So Oilers fans are going to hate us again, or at least hate me, but should be a fun series. Dallas has the number one power play left in the playoffs, and the Oilers penalty kill. We know what it did last year. I don't even think Dallas got a power play goal in that series last year. And then obviously we touched on the Jack in terms of what Skinner was able to do versus Ottinger. The depth will be huge here. Robinson's got to get going. Duchene's got to get going. Ben's got to get going. Sagan's got to get going. If the Dallas Stars want to have any hope, they do have just like the Oilers do up front. They have Connor and Leon. Dallas doesn't have that. But Dallas has two horses on the back end that the Oilers don't have in Heiskanen and Thomas Harley. So, Phil, what's the intriguing part of this matchup, and where are you coming out and seeing where things will lie here?
Yeah, it's interesting you were just saying all those stars that need to get going, but if you're an Oilers fan, you're looking at Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl that, maybe they need to get going too a little more. Look at that last series that they just played. How much we talked about this with Jack. Like, the Oilers' depth is actually really surprising me right now, and I don't know if Nick has anything else to touch on that. He wasn't in the interview with Jack, but Jack said he feels that the Oilers' depth might be a little better.
Nick, what's your thoughts?
I think for me, the biggest name that wasn't mentioned at any point through all of this was Rantanen. And I think he's going to be the game. Like, to me, that's the most interesting sort of wrinkle in this series. Is Dallas is very similar to what they were last year, but now they got Rantanen, who's been an absolute monster in the playoffs. I think Edmonton's depth has been very good. In terms of which, if Dallas's depth guys do get going, I trust their depth a lot more than I trust the Oilers' depth to be consistent. But I mean, to this point, they haven't really been that. Rantanen really carried them late in the Colorado series, carried them through the Winnipeg series. They do need those guys to get going. Like Robertson, I think he played 4 games. I think he played 4 games in the second round. He needs to get going. Ben hasn't really done much. Sagan, he assisted on the Harley winner the other night, but other than that, he didn't do a whole heck of a lot in that series. I'm interested, like even Wyatt Johnston, I think he needs to be a little bit better too. I trust Dallas's depth more, but Edmonton's depth is really looking good right now, and they played a major role in how quick that series was with Vegas.
Yeah, it's man, it'll be what a series this could potentially be, just with a lot of intriguing players on each side and the stories that could be told. Edmonton got their revenge against Vegas. Does potentially Dallas get their revenge against the Oilers? But the way the Oilers are playing and have been playing, going down the stretch into the playoffs with a full roster and a potential of Ekholm at some point in this series, could be a recipe Dallas does not want to face, and a situation they want to have in front of them for sure. Anything you guys want to add before we sign out here on that?
I think both series are going to be really, really good. I think Edmonton will ultimately beat Dallas, but I think they're going to have to work for it, and it's going to have to be everybody's going to have to work for it. all 18 skaters are going to have to be going every game if they're going to beat them, because Dallas is they're in the third straight Western Conference final for a reason, and it's not because they're slouches. They're a really good team, and now they got a guy who's won a Stanley Cup recently with Rantanen, and I think he's leading the playoffs in points. Like he's been outstanding, and Edmonton's gonna have to find a way to, without Ekholm, at least at the beginning of the series, to find a way to minimize what he can do.
Yeah, that was a talking point of practice today. Yeah, do you have a prediction?
Oilers in 6.
Oilers in 6, and the Kane series, Panther series.
Canes in 6.
Canes in 6. Stockley.
I have Oilers in 5, and I have Panthers in 7.
Panthers in 7.
And we're gonna have a rematch of last year.
Yeah, I got Panthers versus Stars. That's what I think. I think the Panthers in 7. I think the Stars in 7. So, yeah, just because I think it's going 7, and Pete DeBoer is 9-0 in Game 7s. So I think that trend continues. But
one more thing somebody did mention, I just want your quick take, boys, is are the Panthers going to start getting tired here? Like this will be 3 years in a row.
So.
If they win this series, it'll be 3 years in a row going to the finals.
Yeah, I don't think so, because it didn't look like they were tired at all last night. That was Game 7. They're the only team in the playoffs that literally took out a whole fourth line and put a brand new fourth line in, and then that fourth line had multiple goals. Like Adrian Gur scored, Gatchevic scored. Like,
Yeah.
I don't see any other team in the playoffs that could do that. And we all talked about 4-line teams and not overextending your minutes. That's why, because no one plays more than 20 minutes. You just keep rolling and rolling. And they got the best third line. Ristolainen, Lindell, and Marchand. That's the best third line in the playoffs right now. I don't think there's any line that even comes close to that line at all. So I don't know. And if it's the Stars versus the Panthers, I have to take the Panthers, man. Like it's just what I saw from this 7-game series. Like they play like they've never won a cup before, and they're not like, oh, we got our cup, we're not going to really do this anymore. We're good. No, they want it, and they're playing like they want it. And eventually, Kachuk's got to get going for them. That's concerning too, because he can be a difference maker if he starts getting going. He hasn't yet. So maybe if he finds a way to be a factor. Like the last time the Canes and Panthers played, Kachuk was a huge part. He had 2 or 3 game winners. He had that 1 game winner, and they just went straight to the exit. We're out of here. Fire the jet. We're out. That was in Carolina. Does that rekindle back for him? Just because we always see how players have success against certain teams. So anyways, we'll be back on Wednesday, end up being Thursday night, to do a breakdown of some of these games. So stay tuned to that, and we're looking forward to connecting with you guys very, 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 very soon. And thanks for everyone for their support, listening in, subscribing. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel, hit the thumbs up button, and we look forward to connecting again. And all the best to everyone that is enjoying playoff hockey and not enjoying playoff hockey or doing other things. But if you are, you're obviously watching this podcast. So appreciate the support. Take care, everyone.